Okay guys, this is the first scenario in troubleshooting, and I'm just going to use this small handheld mini cutter just because it's a little bit easier to handle when we're going through this. I would urge you guys to pick up a multimeter or a voltmeter, ohmometer, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. This will really help you guys figure out if you have any type of short circuits in your line anywhere. That's pretty much how we're going to diagnose what the problem is. These circuits are so basic. If your power supply isn't working, or if your wire isn't heating up for that matter, it's usually pretty straightforward. First and foremost, make sure that all of your connectors are attached. If you're using alligator clips, you have to make sure that, if these are alligator clips, make sure that they aren't touching each other, when you're kind of going between your power supply and your actual cutter. If you have where your, two wire connectors actually touch each other, you're going to arc through there rather than going to your actual handheld cutter itself. So make sure you don't have anything touching anywhere. One of the other areas that I usually have problems is if you actually took the time to wire in one of those small DC connectors. You can see in the electronics part, is a lot of times when you screw those back sides on, it will compress the two metal points together, and that in of itself could be causing a short circuit. So just I'd watch out for that, or make sure you don't have any problems. First and foremost, you should have definitely calculated the resistance within your circuit, or even tested if you have this made. Go ahead and test your resistance and make sure that your power supply actually has enough wattage, output wattage, to power it. If you don't have enough, you don't have enough. It won't do anything. Kind of moving on from there, the next part is to disconnect your device, however you have it set up. It just so happens that I'm using the crimp-on connectors, because I just find those to be the easiest when switching between. And what I do first to start, is I look at my DC power supply, and I just hook up, each of these, one of my alligator clips for my ohmometer to each of these, to make sure that I'm actually registering an output in voltage from my power supply when I depress the switch. And I'll zoom in so you can see. The first thing you want to do, like I said, is make sure you have your alligator clips here coming from your voltmeter hooked up there. And when you're looking at these voltmeters, they usually, depending on the type that you have, the V with the little tilde or squiggly line, that means alternating current. And then when you have a V with a solid line and the three dots underneath, that's going to be the DC power supply or DC voltage testing. These other readings around here just kind of help with your decimal place, because these are usually pretty sensitive. So I just turn it to the 200 setting, which gets us that reading, a single tenth and 2 decimals. So what we have is 6.4 registering down here. I'm going to hit the foot switch, and you can see that we're registering at 6.7. So it's actually putting out a little bit more than what it says. And when you turn this dial, you should also see a concurrent increase in your DC voltage reading on your voltmeter. And since the voltmeter read appropriately and read accurately as we turn the dial over here, we know that the problem isn't with our power supply. So, if it comes down to it where, you press your foot switch, if you do have a foot switch, and you're turning this dial and you're not getting any change on here, well, first of all, make sure you don't have a short, between your two wires, but you might have a faulty power supply. This one, hey, this one's looking good. So we can kind of move on from there. The next thing that we want to test is going to be the actual device itself. Okay, and one of the things that I'll typically do is just disconnect the nichrome wire. Okay, and then I'll hook, you know, the one lead on one side and one lead on the other side, and what that does is it tests the continuity from your DC power supply up one arm, across, and down the other way. So if for some reason your power supply isn't reading in that whole loop, then you got an issue. Okay, it means somewhere inside here you may have dislodged one of your pieces. You know, maybe your crimp-on, you know, up here, your crimp-on on the inside had come disconnected. But either way, you know, that's going to be the next step for us. And really, you know, when we hooked up, you know, our voltmeter onto the two leads from our power supply, we're basically doing the same thing when we hook it up to either of these two terminals. It's just that it has a little bit of a longer road to get up there. So I'll zoom in once again and kind of show you as we go through it. So go ahead and connect your device back to your power supply. All right. And then we'll disconnect the nichrome wire. Now, I rarely disconnect the whole thing. Usually I'll just leave one side hanging and just make sure I hook my alligator clip up here. So once again, as we go through it, should be reading as 0. Press the foot switch, and then turn the dial, make sure we're not getting any problems there. Alright, we're good. So, really not all that hard, you know. This one we know didn't have any shorts. You know, we didn't have anything slip off, but that would kind of be the steps that you go through, you know, if you were having a short circuit, or if, you know, your power supply just, you know that it's working, it tested positive, I mean, it tested fine, but your wire's still not heating up. You know, and if it comes down to it that everything's testing out, I mean, when you hook up your leads to either of these two terminals, and you're still getting a consistent reading between the two, and it's probably the wire. Either you have the wrong gauge wire than what you think you have, but you know, even then you should have already tested, you know, with your voltmeter the overall ohm reading for this particular circuit. So, and you can go over to the electrical circuitry diagrams or tutorials rather, and it shows you how to test the ohmage, but it's really easy. You just use this. So, other than that should help you do your basic troubleshooting. Go on to the next tutorial under the troubleshooting section, because what I'm going to show you is when these things top out, or if they clip on you. I'll show you what that means and what it means for your circuit. So we'll see you there.